Welcome back to ZANTASTIC. This is the podcast where we talk about what makes you fantastic. No matter what kind of background you come from, your life can be fantastic. And my guest today is a perfect example of that. Dennis Meador is someone who started out his life with numerous challenges, but because of his unique way of seeing the world, those challenges ended up turning into opportunities that have led him to where he is today, living on an island off the coast of Belize and running a multimillion-dollar company, helping other individuals get online with podcasting. He is well-spoken, easy to listen to, and we talk about everything from entrepreneurship, podcasting, and how his life turned into what it is. It's a fascinating story. I think you'll get a lot from this. Thanks for being here. Enjoy the conversation. Dennis Meador, thank you so much for being here today. How's your day going?
That's good. It is, I think, 82 degrees today. Little slight breeze. I actually live on an island in Belize, San Pedro. So, it makes for a nice day whenever things get a little crazy in my little 10 by 10 office here. I just walk out 100 feet that way, not even 50 feet that way, and I look out on the backside of the island, or I can walk about 100 yards that way and, look out on the Caribbean. So you can't ever really complain when that's life, right?
That is the end goal, to live in paradise, to live in a place that inspires you and keeps you connected. Nice.
Yeah, it's not. We've been here about 3 years. We're actually getting ready to move. We are moving up north, still staying in like kind of the Yucatan, Merida, Mexico, which is just below the Gulf of Mexico. My wife is we're going to be having a baby this fall, and so we need better health care. On the island here, they're like, yeah, this isn't the best place to have a baby. So, we're going to go north.
Nice. Well, congratulations. That is so
Thank you.
fun. How did you end
Yes.
up in Belize?
So my now wife, the one that I'm moving to Merida with, so I guess it's been almost 4 years ago now, we came and we visited over spring break. She was a school teacher at the time. And I've worked remote for years, had my own, kind of digital marketing company. So had freedom with that. And she's like, man, it would be awesome to move here. And I said, we can if you want. And so we did. We were here by December of that year. And, we just hit our 3-year mark 2 months ago.
Amazing. So is the internet good, or do you do the Starlink thing?
Very good internet. That was one of my deciding factors.
Yeah.
The country of Belize put in fiber optic internet from end to end during the pandemic. And so, I've got, I don't want to say great internet and then it's going to go out. Right. But, let me put it this way. The electricity goes out far more than the internet does here.
Oh, really? That's kind of hilarious. You never think about that. Yeah. But you got probably backup generator type of thing going on.
Yeah, you got to have generators and solar power and all that fun stuff. So we try to have that in place.
Yeah, cool. So what kind of digital marketing do you do?
I've been in the digital space since the early 2000s. And so I've kind of run the gamut, started with websites and SEO and, did, kind of that stuff for a while, then kind of went to like overall branding, social media in like early 2010, kind of became my forte up until probably about 2018. Did some SEO and stuff in the middle there. And I primarily worked with attorneys most of my career, although I have worked with professionals across all things. I launched 2 years ago. It's called the Legal Podcast Network. And essentially it is a podcast-centric marketing system that's really cultivates authoritative positioning. We work with primarily attorneys. We're getting ready to launch the Authority Podcast Network. And basically what we do is we take a podcast session. We have like centered questions around our clients' client profiles. We provide hosts and producers. They just show up and answer questions. We then turn that into an audio and a video podcast, put it on about, 30 different places there. We create shorts, reels, audiograms, static ads. We run all their social media off of it. We create website content. We're getting ready to launch a TV channel a couple of them actually with the podcasts on them, and then launch also a couple of guesting services. So just a light little thing that we do, not much, but no, we try to maximize the time of our clients, and we've seen a lot of success with it. We're coming on about 2 years. I bootstrapped this, started with my VA I've had for 5 years, had a guy doing some contracting on the side for me. He now runs that whole team, and we've got about 65 people on the team and 200 and something odd clients. So it's been quite a ride for not officially 2 years yet.
That's pretty amazing. Podcasting is kind of cool because well, I'm going to ask you. Tell me why podcasting is so cool. I've got opinions, but I'd like to hear yours.
Well, I mean, there's a tons of reasons. So, first and foremost, what I like about podcasting is the ability to, pick and choose your content. Like I love I listen to cult podcasts. I can't get enough of them. Probably because I was kind of exposed to them when I was younger, things like that. And so now I can understand like the cult thought processes and things like that. But, so it allows you to kind of tailor your content. Secondly, especially on the audio side, it's frictionless. So if you want to listen to a podcast and go for a walk, if you want to listen to a podcast and work out, if you want to listen to a podcast, just sit on your deck and just kind of enjoy the evening, whatever, it's the only frictionless form of media that we really have. And then the other thing I really like about podcasting is, from a business standpoint, is it allows you to connect with people. And it allows you to multiply your time tremendously. We take a half hour of our clients' time and we cultivate a month's worth of marketing with daily posts on 10 outlets, website content, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff just from 30 minutes of sitting there talking and answering questions. So there's several reasons of why it's awesome. We're definitely reaching that tipping point societally. You're seeing them on Netflix. You're seeing Amazon come out with them. So, it's very accepted. And then there's it's that last, sort of authenticity opportunity. A lot of people have lost that kind of sense, especially with AI and everything else that's out there, overproduced media. And, I tell people, perfection is the new plastic. More now than ever, you can just go out, really be yourself. Be your raw self, not necessarily every scar and every, faux pas that you have or that is in your life, but it's just an opportunity to go out and really just be genuine, authentic, who you are. And then you put that out to the masses, and then people find you, or if you're good, you help people find you even quicker.
Yeah, there's something to that authentic signal of who you are, where it's not an image, it's not a blog post, it's not curated content that's all very packaged. It's you and your voice and your mannerisms, and it almost takes that one-to-one conversation that somebody used to have in the old days of sales meetings and stuff, but it brings it to the digital world in a way that nothing else does. And that's one of the reasons I love it so much and in my interviewing too, it's I can ask super interesting questions. I ask questions that oftentimes many other people don't. And I like it how I can get to a place where I can help people think about themselves as a guest in a new way. And it's just fascinating to me of the conversations that I've been able to have. What would you say for guests? Because I know a lot of people, most people are looking to be guests, right? Rather than start the business of being in a podcast. What should they think about when they're guesting on a podcast?
I think a few things. One is, why are they guesting? Some people, they're guesting for a very specific reason. They want to promote their book. They want to promote their brand. They want to promote their company, and those are fair reasons if you're honest about it. I think some people, they kind of slide in, and then all of a sudden they're just talking about their company and blah, 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 without really even being prompted or asked. And so, I think that's one reason to do it, or what I would tell that person. But, I think that the other thing is it's an opportunity to have conversations that you otherwise wouldn't have, and to connect at scale. I live on this little island, and there are people that listen to, watch, and pay attention to me that I don't even know it. I was at my local butcher shop, Country Meats, just down the road, right? So I go down there in my golf cart, and the guy's name is Francisco, and I've been shopping with him ever since he opened up his little meat store. And I was talking to him, and he was saying something about his business. And I just kind of mentioned casually, like, oh, yeah, I do a lot with business. That's kind of my thing. I don't know if you know what, pay attention, but I actually do still work for a living or something. He's like, oh, I know. I listen to all your podcasts. I don't understand a lot of it, but I really like it. And so you connect with people in a way you just don't even know. Same thing. I go to the same little coffee shop, just maybe about 2 blocks in essence from where I am. And there's this one young lady, Brianna, and we kind of tease all the time. She's about the age of my youngest daughter. So, I kind of like tease and joke with her, and she's kind of tough-minded little young lady. And I like that. I like people like that. And then I said something, and she goes, oh yeah, you said that on that podcast the other day. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, oh, well, I follow you on LinkedIn, and I have the thing. And every time you post on LinkedIn, it comes to my thing, and I have you on YouTube. And every time a new podcast comes out, I watch it. And I was just like, I mean, I never would have been able to connect with those people in that way if it weren't for podcasting. And now extrapolate that through all the podcast guesting that you can do, all the connections that you can make. And that is, to me, one of the great benefits is you can connect to people at scale. And the advantage as a business owner is if I'm connecting to my clients at scale, then when they come to me, there's already that relationship. I'm not cultivating and building rapport and, oh, look, you have a candle in the background. Oh, look, you have books. I read books, Kathy. We should be best friends. Like that sort of like fake rapport thing they teach you to do. But like these people literally come to you and they're like, hey, been listening to your podcast. Love what you do. You said this, this, and this. I need help with this. I'm ready to work with you. And you're just kind of like, oh, okay. So there's a lot of advantages to guesting on a podcast. And again, it depends on what you're really trying to focus. For me, it's a way for me to give back and to mentor and to talk about the struggles I've been through in life, to talk about how I went from somebody who's in a certain economic situation and now being in a different socioeconomic situation, somebody who graduated high school with a 2.43 GPA, as I like to tell people, magna cum barely, and 1,012 out of 1,543 in my graduating class, yet I've been making money since I was 14 years old. I just wanted to slip a paper so I could make more money and not have to show up someplace and take the test so that I could show them that I wasn't a dummy and I could move on in life. So that's the opportunity that podcast gives you. It gives you a chance to tell your story, share your wins, share your defeats, and hopefully be of help to somebody else. And so, it could be any one of those reasons, or it could be a combination of all of them.
I want to ask about your path from one socioeconomic standpoint to where you are now. But I have one question before we leave podcasts behind. Are podcasts are they good for a business to host? Should a business start a podcast?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I hang my hat on. So there's really 2 things that are coming, so you have podcasters who have a business. So there's the hobby of podcasting, and sure, it's more technical, but to me, it's like Dungeons and Dragons, video games, pickleball, podcasting. Like it's a thing that people do, and that book clubs, whatever. It's a hobby. And that's primarily what it's been historically. But now we're starting to see people become famous through podcasting. And so then other people are like, well, I want a podcast because I want to be famous. But besides podcasters who maybe have a business, what we're really seeing is a shift now where businesses have a podcast. And not all podcasting is specifically for conversation, connection. It can be something where help is given. And I'm just going to use my example because this is kind of I'm not going to say I came up with this idea. I'm sure it's out there. But as I kind of thought through, how can I help attorneys podcast in a way that will benefit them? And so what we do with our clients is we find out, who are your clients? Okay, you're a divorce lawyer. You primarily work with men, high assets. They want to have custody. Okay, that's who you are. You're in the Miami, Florida market. So we're actually going to do question and answer podcasts for that specific group of people, answering the questions that they have. We're going to go really deep, and then we're going to go wide. We're going to talk about, how do I make sure I get the boat? How do I make sure that, I have majority custody? How do, and so we really get granular, and that's what it allows businesses to do, is it allows them to connect with expertise, and their marketing stops being about how great I am, and it starts being about, what needs do you have? So that by the time people eventually come to these businesses, the relationship's already built. So there's a tremendous opportunity for podcasting for businesses, because for the first time in history, we're not buying infomercials for 30 minutes. We're setting up a camera, talking for 30 minutes, and people are sitting down and on purpose listening to what we have to say, usually because there's a need or an upcoming need or a fear. And if you can assuage fears, provide clarity, and give answers in a moment, you're not just helping your business, you're helping society as a whole.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm a big proponent of businesses who have podcasts.
Yeah. I started a podcast with software company that I worked for, and software is all about trust. People buy the product when they're sure that the developers are someone that they can trust, and they're going to build their business based on the software. And so I pulled my dev along with me. We'll make it real easy. It's just going to be audio and us talking, and I'll edit it, and you're going to sound awesome. And they were really scared at first, but then by the end of it, they were doing really well, because it established that trust. New features coming in the product, they could come on and talk about it, and it sold, I think, and established that brand better than anything else. And it wasn't about, the product is so great or I'm so great or anything like that. It's like, no, here's what's coming and how you can use it. And it's like education, it's connection. It established not just the brand of the product, but it established the brand of the developer, so they're on to do other things. But I know people are following that developer because they had a voice. And then I put them on video. Like, you're gonna do video because you're cute and everybody's gonna love you. And so it's
exactly.
Yeah, it just works so well. And it doesn't have to be scary, right? I mean, people are like, podcasting, they don't even know where to start, but there's so many tools that people can use. Like, just get started, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, even just a script right now there's a product, a script. It's like very low bar, very low friction. And if you're semi-technical and you've got the time, where I kind of sit in the marketplace is, you probably don't have time for this, but you see where it would benefit you. So let me just take care of everything but the talking, and I provide everything else. But, if you have the time, the tools are there. I probably got, and, I'm bragging about my setup, and I told you my TV's not working. So it looks like I'm like just in like a dark place. But, I got a DSLR camera there, roughly $750. I got a couple of lights. I think that was a couple $100 and $100. And then I have this microphone that's like $300. If I have $5,000 in this room, and it's probably closer to 3,500, I'd be surprised. And yet, with a pretty low barrier of entry, I sit in this office, and I did 99 podcast guest spots last year. I'm doing, 3, 5, 7 a week already. I do a couple of my own podcasts that are out there. And yeah, I mean, it's a low barrier of entry. And the other thing is, like you talked about, I can't tell you how often someone will like connect with me on LinkedIn, and they'll just be like, hey, I've been listening to your podcast. I want a podcast. How do I work with you? I remember one Friday a couple of weeks ago, it was like 3 straight messages just like that. And I'm like, why on earth isn't every business doing this? Because here's the thing, you better do it now before everyone is, because once the marketplace is inundated, it's a commoditization. That's the same thing that happened to most knowledge work, is it was commoditized by the internet. And so there's a new era, a new opportunity to come in, and it's no longer about having the first shiniest new website or showing up on the front page for the highest number of terms. It's about actually building an audience or building yourself into the algorithm to where when people are asking these very important questions that are very, there's a lot of fear for them, you're the one who is cited, you're the one who's answering it, you're the one building the relationship.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so amazing, and really, What would be the one piece of tech that you say, like, if you're going to spend money on any tech, what's the one thing people should spend on?
I think there's really two: your camera, but you
Mm.
could do that fairly inexpensive, but lighting. What we've noticed, because we do 200 and something odd firms that we do shows for right now, lighting is the biggest issue. Get a couple of, light canceling or whatever, room darkening, I forget what they call them, curtains, and, you know, spend a few $100s on setting up a proper lighting kit and having a decent camera in front of you. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
You see one podcast and the guy's just like sitting in his living room and he's got kids running in the background and he kind of half blurs it out. And he's flooded with natural light on top of, fake light coming in. And, you're just looking at him going, okay, you're telling me that I'm supposed to trust you with a $2 million issue? Like, so I would say lighting in combination with a decent camera.
Yes, for sure. I have to tell you, because it just popped in my head and made me laugh. I was on this Zoom call and this guy had terrible lighting, a fake, like Zoom
Oh,
background,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then he was eating. I was just like, no self-awareness whatsoever. I'm like, I had to take a screen capture of it just because it was like the worst. Like, just don't do this. Like, you're gonna
Yeah.
be okay no matter what you're doing. Just like, here's the worst case scenario. Just be a little self-aware that there are actually other people there looking at you. It's not just you, with the bowl of cereal in your
Yeah.
room. It was so
Yeah,
funny.
and I'm sure we've done this long enough now. We probably could swap tons of war stories like that
Yeah.
of just people not being aware of what's going on. And, but at the end of the day, what you put out is supposed to be who you are.
Yeah.
And, some people will spend more money on the desk in their lobby that 82% of people never even want to walk into and still be your client. They'll spend more on that desk than they will spend on how they look online.
Yeah.
And it's like, the sort of like old world thinking of like where value is. Like, no one's going to walk in the door and be like, is that a $3,000 desk? Well, I wasn't sure, but now I definitely want to work with you. That's just not going to happen. But if they look at a video and they see that you're presented professionally and the lighting's right, and you speak well and you're articulate and you're calming and comforting or whatever it is, you're going to have a much better chance than that $3,000 desk ever gave you.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Such good advice for anyone. I am really curious about your trajectory of your career. You have a lifestyle and a business that you have chosen. You are not living in a place that you don't like. You are living in a place that inspires you. You have a business that I just from hearing you speak, you're lit up about it. You're excited. You're motivated. But you didn't come from there. How did you get here?
You know, I like to use the phrase, I am natural born and trauma built. So, life is, we have to all be willing to embrace our journey, because where we are, we only got here because of where we were. And so, like, I was an Air Force brat the first 7 years of my life. And as far as I can remember, it seemed semi normal living on an Air Force base. We moved a lot, I think 8 or 9 states during that time. And that probably taught me to make friends instantly and not be afraid to talk to people. Again, trauma building, something that it is to my advantage. But at 8 years old, my parents got a divorce. My dad kind of went off and did his thing, nothing too crazy, but, work and living his life. My mom started dating like drug dealers, like a crack dealer, heroin dealer, pimps, leaders of the Gangsta Disciples out of Chicago. Our house became like a gang house, drive-by shootings, all people crashing there all the time, party night every night. So at 8, 9, 10 years old, I went from kind of just, well, I'm just a kid, to like paying attention to like my sister, making sure she was fed. Every morning we would get up, take 2, 3, 400 beer cans, dump them out, rinse them out, walk down to the gas station. We got a nickel for each beer can. So that's how we usually ate for the day, 10, 12, $15, depending on how big the party was that night before. My mom was in some not great relationships where 2, 3, 4 in the morning, she'd be battered, bruised, and I'd have to like take her and my sister crying and, find a place for us to stay for the night that was safe. And so, kind of being in that situation, and around, 11, 12 years old is when I really realized, like, I can't live here. My mom got me drunk for my 11th birthday. That was her gift to me. She bought me a 2-liter bottle of, I don't know if you've ever heard of a thing called Purple Passion. But it was it was essentially grape soda with Everclear.
Is that
So
a Mad Dog MD 2020 type of thing?
it's like its older, tougher cousin.
Okay.
So, and honestly, that was the only time I drank until I was 36 years old, just because I'd been
Wow.
exposed to all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I realized I was like, with drinking, and I saw the drugs, and I saw everything around me, and I saw the abuse, and I saw, the police coming in our house. And I was just like, I do not want this. I don't like being dirty. I don't like having roaches and mice all the time around me. It's just, I knew, like, I'm going to get out of here. I don't care. When I grow up, people would ask me, what do you want to be? And I just would say, not poor. That's all I knew. And so 13 years old, my dad gets remarried, and she has 2 kids. There's me and my sister, so it's hers. They end up having 2 more there, so there's 6 kids. A bit of a culture shock. I came in, and they were like, my dad met her in church and everything, so they were like churchy. And I put in my, like, I don't know if you know who Eazy-E is, but I put in my Eazy-E, where it was gangsta rap, like NWA, like that group. And so I put in my music, and I put up my posters of, like, girls in thong bikinis slung over cars. And, like, to me, I'm like, this is just my life. I didn't think it's my bedroom. And, like, they're like, what's going on here? And so I moved into kind of the middle-class neighborhood, probably lower middle class. Like, my parents didn't make a ton of money, but they did enough to kind of keep a roof over our heads. But that was kind of like what they said. You got a roof over your head. You got food in your belly. You might not be super full, but you're not dying or starving. And you got clothes. Now, your clothes might have come from the church pantry, but there's still clothes on your back. Well, my stepmom decided and appreciated, she worked so we could go to a private Christian school. Well, the kids in the private Christian school are upper middle class to upper class people. I'm on the very bottom rung, and it was a step up from being, in the lowest socioeconomic place. But I'm at the bottom of the middle class, and I was just like, and I think the thing that really set it off for me, I was about 14 years old, 14, 15. It was 14, I think. I had a buddy that was making money. And, he was like me, poor, but they were always just making money, kind of hustling. And I was like, man, how are you just making money? Like I knew how to get cans and pay attention and things like that. But, like, so we went, and he had told me about shoveling snow, that you can get like $20 to shovel people's walks. So I got my stepbrother and his best friend, and we started knocking doors. And after about an hour, I had gotten 2. We were taking turns, but they didn't like knocking on the doors. And I really didn't like shoveling the snow. So I was like, hey, guys, let's do this. I'll knock on the doors and get the customers. And then when you're done, you just come to the next spot, and then we'll do the next job, and we'll do that, and we'll make good money until we're done. And they're like, oh, that's great. And I was happy. I didn't have to do that. So next time it came, I went right back to the houses that used us. So we made more money because we knocked out a bunch of houses in a row and then added to our thing. And then we started having their friends coming. And then the spring came, and then, we were, mowing lawns, doing paper routes, raking leaves. But essentially any job for a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy, I had the job. I collected the money, and then my brother and all of his friends did the jobs. So that was my first kind of venture. Now, all of a sudden, I'm making a few $100s a week regularly. Some weeks, even more than just a couple $100. Some weeks making more than my own parents. And that's kind of how I started, like, understanding, wait, you make a lot more money helping other people make money than you do making the money yourself. And that was just kind of the thing that I did for the most part through the rest of my career, is delegate, figure out ways, unite people. And so now here we are, 30 years later. And in 21 months, I've taken a company that I bootstrapped, and I've taken it from me, my VA, who I've had for a number of years out of the Philippines. Now we have 65, 66 people in the company, over 200 clients. We did 7 figures our first year. We'll probably have a 2x on that this next year. So And it's all been just from the lessons I learned as a young man, which was I'm going to make a lot more money by helping other people make money who are kind of afraid to do the things, and really just embracing awkwardness in life. I always tell people, like, I have learned to maneuver my way through society by spotting the things that are awkward that people don't want to do and getting very good at those moments. Like, I sell attorneys for a living and I barely graduated high school. Why? Because I'm not afraid of them. And I feel like I can speak in an articulate manner, which allows us to have a one-on-one conversation of equal intellect. I'm not intimidated by them. I know when they're trying to pull this or that, I'll even call them on it. Listen, you're not going to do that because all you're trying to do is position for this, and I'm not going to fall for that, blah, 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 blah. So just learning to embrace the awkward moments in life has allowed me to go from selling services to soliciting donations, to becoming a script writer, to becoming a manager of people who were selling ads in police magazines or were grown men, to selling doctors and putting together hospital patient handbooks at 20 years old, to starting my first business at 23. By the time I'm 24, we're doing $3.5 million with a net 25, moving to Romania, doing that for a few years, and just climbing up and finding awkward moments and things that people weren't willing to do, and just saying, well, if no one else will do it, I'll do it, because that's a chance for me to get somewhere that I might not otherwise have the chance to get to.
You do the things nobody else wants to do too, like knocking on the door, not being afraid to talk to people. I think that stops a lot of people. I think that's like such the key to success, because no business exists unless there's sales, and sales is uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's the knocking on the door and having to talk to a complete stranger and pitching a service. Like, everybody's afraid to do that, and it holds so many people back. But you seem to have a knack for this. What's the secret?
I mean, the secret is when you're 8 years old and 10 years old and you're knocking on the door of somebody down the block at 2:30 in the morning with your mom and your sister behind you crying, and your mom beat up, and you happen to, convince this person to let you in because they know the guy who beat her, and, so I think it was, like I said, natural born combined with trauma built. It was those moments and those opportunities. But I think it's also like, for me, I'm of the opinion, if I don't ask, the answer's already no.
Right.
So asking is pure upside in my mind. Because if I don't ask, I already have the answer I was afraid of. So how can I be afraid to confirm what I already knew? That'd be like being afraid to say the sky is blue. I already know the sky is blue, and don't tell me because of light refraction, blah, 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 it's really whatever color. Please take my point for what it is. So for me to say the sky is blue, it's just like, I'm just confirming what I already knew. I'm not afraid to say that. And it's the same thing when I talk to somebody. I'm like, hey, well, what do you think about this? Well, well, what about that? Well, Also, a little bit of parallel. I actually was a youth pastor, missionary for almost 20 years, from 16 to 35, 36 years old. And we were like the door knocking, street preaching, no television in the house, King James only Bible. Like, we were like, that was the kind of church that my dad was in when I moved in with him. And then I kind of like latched into that and found a place into that. And so again, like when I knocked on doors in that situation, in my mind, I was like, if I don't knock on this person's door, they might go to hell forever. Like, that was my thought process. If I don't go out on the street corner and tell people about Jesus, then these people might go to hell forever. I'm not saying I'm necessarily of that mind frame now, but that enabled me in those moments. So I think the necessity of, well, if I don't ask, what is the alternative? The alternative is I'm already getting what I didn't want. Mm-hmm. So it's 100% upside to actually not be afraid and just do the thing.
Just do the thing. You had to grow up so fast and learn that so fast. And you're the oldest?
I am the oldest of 6.
Yeah. I'm the oldest of 3. Grew up in very tumultuous. Dad was a drinker, and mom liked to use money. They used money as a war between each other. So it was a long story, but I think you and I are similar in that respect of, like, if I'm not going to do it, who's going to? You know,
Exactly.
if I don't go find mom's checkbook and make sure the electric gets paid, we're
Hmm.
not going to have lights and TV. And I think the
Yep.
TV was probably a scarier thing to lose. But you have this like, if not me, who? I've got
Hmm.
to. And I think it just drives people. I think it's it's hard for kids to have to grow up that way, but if you can keep it in the right mindset, you can turn it around. And it sounds like you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, I mean, I you can't tell now, but I have a lot of tattoos, and on my mid arm here it says "Embrace your journey," and I
Yeah.
remind myself of that all the time. It's like, because I mean, I'm in therapy and I've had to work through some things, and I had like some mental health issues come out of just like suppressing it, and basically because I was like a full time pastor, have one or two businesses, had three kids. I literally would 18, 20 hours a day, every day. I believed every moment must be monetized. And I did that until I crashed and burned and spent a year and a half in
Mm,
bed thinking that I had some sort of like MS or something like my dad. And so, being able to just come back to that point in your life where you're just like, okay, my journey brought me to where I am. In order to be on this island, I had to be in bed for a year. In order to be, last year we had the privilege of traveling for about 5 months, went to Thailand, Bali, 8 or 9 European countries over a couple of month period. In order to do that, I had to be that kid who learned to knock on the door at 2:30 in the morning and ask, because otherwise I wouldn't have been that 19-year-old knocking on doors for churches, and I wouldn't have been that 25-year-old, sitting in boardrooms or sitting in meetings with people who had way more education than I did, had way more credentials than I did, and I would sit at that table as if I belonged to it just like anybody else. And I've
yeah.
always that's been my journey, is I'm supposed to be here whether you think it or not, and just push forward with that.
But did you start out with that kind of confidence or did you have to cultivate it?
I was definitely that kid that like was, during the first 7 years again was a lot of church life, and I was the kid who talked to everybody again because we moved so much. I think you know uh, my best friend is the kid in this playground that I might not ever see again in my life, but he's my best friend for today. So I was it there? I don't know, but it definitely needed to be there rather quickly
Gotcha.
because I mean, when you're in that sort of situation, you either become an introvert or an extrovert. There's really no middle normal ground. It can't be that kind of middle person that the majority of the people are. You're either going to be like, "Hey, how are you? You're my new best friend. Hey, let's go do this," or you're going to be just like sitting back in the corner, like, "Oh well." And I just didn't like sitting back in the corner, feeling like I didn't fit in. So I
Yeah.
always tried to find a way as quickly as possible to be in the midst of things. I
Yeah,
was the
that
kid like on the playground where when the games were being played, like just naturally, because I've always had like a sense of like fairness and things like that. I would make the rules and I would, oh, no, no, we're not going to, no, Bob, you can play. Bobby can play. He's fine. Well, I know he's a little bit slower, but we'll just every third step, we're going to skip, like I was that kid. So probably natural, but then accelerated in life because of the events.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, it's probably better that way because I mean, you could either go external like you did and just go live life and push the energy out, but a lot of people go internal and then try to figure it out or overthink it and they get themselves, I think, into a lot of trouble. So you created a lot of patterns and experiences that showed you going external works and worked for you. And I think that was really foundational, at least from the story. If I may be an armchair psychologist for just a moment,
Absolutely.
but that
I've got enough people analyzing me. What's one more?
well, happy to oblige. My husband had a stroke 4 years ago, and one of my friends was like, make sure you take care of you. And I'm like, I was dealing with hospitals and doctors and social, and I was like dialed up to 11. And I'm like, I don't know how to take care of me, but I know my husband's friend, he's a PhD educational psychology. And I'm like, I don't want to have to explain us to anyone. I just like you're helping me. So I've
Yeah.
been in therapy for 4 years and it feels more like coaching now than it is like fixing. So, but it's helpful, I mean, I don't think it's, a lot of I think in the old days, people were like, oh, you're in therapy. And like it was a bad thing, but I think it's like, it's an
Oh,
upliftment.
you know what? If I ever write a book on leadership, it's going to be called It Takes a Village to Raise a Leader. And
Mm,
one of the things I want to talk about is, like, I have my therapist, I have my marriage therapist, which we do preemptive marriage therapy just so we're communicating correctly. I have a psychiatrist, I have a business coach, and I have 8 directors, and I have an EA, and you know what I mean? I have all these different people that help me be me.
yeah.
And so, like, I think if I decided I don't need all that help, I would not be anywhere near where I am. And not
Yeah.
to say that I've arrived or that I'm in any sort of place that's just the be all end all, but I 10-year-old me could not imagine the life of 48-year-old me. Like, if you
Yeah.
told 10-year-old me, don't worry about the roaches. Don't worry about the hunger. Don't worry about the kids making fun of you. Don't worry about any about that. One day you're going to live on a cool island with a beautiful wife, about to have a baby. You're going to have a business that you love. You're going to work with people that you enjoy. You're going to talk for a living. You're going to just, like, get on podcasts and talk to people. Like, your life is going to be, like, better than you could ever dream. I would have been like, sure, buddy. Man, these people are crazy, So I'm thankful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you have that self-awareness of I can't do this by myself because I know so many people, so many like people that I've even worked for and with CEOs who like it's me, I'm the CEO, I'm the leader, I'm going to make the decisions. And they put all of this pressure on themselves, I think, just like for fear of there's like this fear that they have of not like asking for help, and they burn themselves the F out. And you can't do it, can you? It's like you have to have a team
Well,
around you.
why do I have a team around me now? Because I didn't have a team around me
Right.
in my 20s and 30s when I didn't think I needed a team. So I've just been that weird person who's lived an accelerated life. So most guys my age are hitting that burnout at, late 40s, early 50s, and then they're having to, like, oh boy, and then, fix some things, and they either have to become muscular because of their testosterone levels or whatever it is that they do to fix what's going on and get to a better place. Well, I've already been on that journey for 10 years because I laid in bed for,
Mm.
like I said, a year and a half, not, cognitively not there. Like, I would lose my balance and just fall over. I didn't have control of my emotions. I would get instantly angry. I would cry and so, like, I know what I will end up with if I leave it all up to me. Right. So, like, I could be prideful and an idiot and hold on for a few years at a time and keep trucking and fool everybody, then fall flat on my face again. But, like, what's the point of that? I'm just going to disappoint and hurt the people around me. So now that I know better, why not be better?
So good. So good. But you're better now, but there are you afraid of like claiming that, like tempting fate, like things are good now? Like because I feel like the universe, God is always stretching us, there's always someplace else to go. There's always something else to grow into. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? So how do you keep that balance of when things are going super well, of not getting too comfortable with it, of being open to the challenge?
Well, I think there's a couple of factors in that. So one thing I do is I'm constantly internally monitoring because I know, like, I've got to keep myself at about a 4 to 6 is what I
Okay.
say. If I get to a 7 or 8 and I'm just going crazy and man, things going great, like, I'll just, like, get rid of some social media. I'll less this. I'll take more walks. If I feel myself down in like a 3, 4, where I'm just starting to feel like things aren't going well, then I'll get out in the sun and I'll start doing other activities. So one thing I try to do is self-monitor. Am I afraid of things going bad? I mean, reality is anything can go wrong at any moment. I'm going to enjoy the moment that I have. To worry about what might be is going to take away from what is. So while I'm going to prepare for it and set back finances and take care of relationships and do the things I need to do to maintain what I have, I can't live in constant fear of what will be, because what will be is there's so many variables of it. I mean, I've been shut off from mainstream media since the pandemic. Now I say that things still sneak in. You can't help but know what's going on, but I don't dwell on it and spend time on it. And did you read this? And can you believe they said that? And all the stuff that is just commonplace now. Like, I do the things I know I need to do to keep myself where I know I need to be. And I think that that's the key. It's a desire to be self-aware enough to where you can self-monitor with people around you who love you enough to say, hey man, you're a little off. My wife, what was I looking for in a partner? A strong person. Because I knew that if I had somebody that just tucked in next to me and I could do no wrong, then I was going to fall on my face. My directors in my company, like, I'm always like when they challenge me in a meeting, that at the end of that meeting, I'm like, guys, great job challenging me today. I really appreciate that, because I wouldn't have seen it from that angle. So I'm constantly encouraging those who are around me to challenge me, to keep me growing. Otherwise, I create what I call my own echo chamber of awesomeness, right? We just listen to how great we are from everybody. And then that's when we get off the path of really just continual growth. So I really try to stay away from that echo chamber of awesomeness. When I have somebody that wants to be my friend and I can tell they're kind of like a sycophant, kind of always like, oh, you're so great. You just could do no wrong. Like, your feet must never smell, and I'm just like, I don't have room for that person. I want somebody to be like, dude, go wash your feet, man. Like, your feet are smelling today. Oh, sorry. Like, that's what I want. So maybe that's how I kind of try to monitor that, is I try to surround myself with people who are strong enough to call me out, because I know if I don't, I'll just roll over people and end up falling on my face.
You need to teach a class to so many people. A bunch of these AI is very sycophantic. And I know a lot of people who like go into AI, and AI is like, great idea. Like, I've run a bunch of like stuff through AI, and I'm like, no, I don't want you to tell me that this is a great idea. I want you to tell me what's wrong and what do I need to look for, and where are some opportunities that I'm not seeing. Don't tell me I'm awesome. But I know a lot of people who are like really going down these rabbit holes with AI that's just telling them how awesome they are. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the user experience is everything. And you have to understand with technology desires to be used more and more, because the more you use it, the more information it has, the better it is, and so on and so forth. The people that actually came up with it, all of that. So you have to, that's why learning how to write prompts and do all of that is so important. So I'm going to give you this idea. I want you to look at it through the lens of this person who's got this sort of critical mind, who thinks this way. And so you have to actually tell it and teach it, just like my own people. Like, my 8 directors, when they first start working with me, I'm the most brilliant man on the planet, until they learn that it is safe to actually speak the truth. And we have to, if we're going to use technology to our advantage, we have to tell the technology what we need, not what we want, because it's going to give us what we want. But we have to teach it what we need. And that's why prompt engineering is such a important skill nowadays, because like you said, you'll just create your own echo chamber, because it wants you to come back and use it and use it and use it. So it's not naturally going to go, what are you, stupid? No, don't do it that way. Like, it's not going to do that unless you say, act like you're a guy from Brooklyn who's super cynical and has known this sort of stuff for 30 years. Give me feedback from that guy's point of view. Now you're going to get that point of view. Otherwise, the natural point of view is, you're great.
Yep. I know somebody who has created a synthetic team member, like has actual team members that he is a leader for, but he's created synthetic team members. So like little copies of his people that he can talk to when that person is not available. And that, plus the sycophantic nature of it, I'm just like, yeah, no, prompt engineering, making sure. I think it comes from, you know what, AI reflects back to you who you are. So if you are not open enough to hear criticism and to hear that's not going to work, or even what's the matter, you dummy? Like, if
Yeah.
you're not open to hearing that kind of stuff, AI is going to reflect that back to you, isn't it? It's going to give you what you
It's
are.
it's going to give you what it's cultivated about you. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's why I say you have to keep prompting it. Tell me, okay, okay, look at it from this angle. Well, what about this? Is there something wrong here? Does that make sense grammatically? Is that something that, like, and you use it to pick apart versus to build you up. When you use AI to pick apart, you come up with a much better product
Sure.
or answer than when you use it to just, again, create your own echo chamber of awesome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Very, very cool. Lots for me to think about there, Dennis. I am so this flew by. I want to make sure respectful of your time, but you gave me so much to think about. I can't wait. My fun, like I know I should have somebody to edit, but I love listening to these again. So I can't wait to edit this one because I know I'm going to pick up even more. For anybody that wants to find you, that's listening, where are the places that they can find you online?
So if you're intrigued by the concept of me helping you with podcasting and content stack and authoritative positioning and the stuff I talked about in the beginning, my company is the legalpodcastnetwork.com. We're also in the midst of launching the authoritypodcastnetwork.com, but we'll at least have it at the bottom of our site on LPN site. But to connect with me directly, where I really try to this kind of communication and cut videos out of these things and talk about leadership and authenticity and not being afraid to be real and how to cultivate a remote culture and just all the different things I like to talk about as a leader is LinkedIn. And so I post on there apparently too regularly. The algorithm's kind of mad at me right now but here's the thing, so I'm actually meeting with my team in about 2 hours. I'm creating what I'm going to call social media in a vacuum. And essentially what I'm going to do is all of my posts and stuff, because I tend to think in posts and write, and then all of our content is done out of meetings like this. All of our internal meetings are recorded. And so everything I talk about becomes content in my company. It could be a course, it could be LinkedIn, it could be a video series. It's all this stuff. So I just talk and it becomes stuff. I love it. It's like, how fortunate am I? But what I'm trying to do is basically create my content, give it to my team, and then just once a week have them say, oh, we're up 22%. And I don't look at the individual, because what happens for me, and maybe you're emotionally stronger than this, folks, but I put something on LinkedIn that means something to me, and I'm putting something about my past, or I'm putting something about that's important in leadership, or maybe I'm calling out to people like, hey, why are you complaining about LinkedIn? This is borrowed land. Like, you don't own this place. You're posting on it, and now because you got 3 less likes than you got last month, it's the worst thing, dumbest thing in the world. Just shut up and enjoy it. So I put out that content, and sometimes it's like, I'm like, I tell you what, Alex Hormozy and Gary Vee themselves are going to call me and be like, I want to be your friend. I saw that content. And then nothing happens, nothing moves. Right. So I want to remove myself from that daily sort of torture, a little bit of torture of living in that, and really just continue to express and talk and have conversations and let things happen, and whatever happens with it, and let my team kind of worry about how the algorithm treats it. So that way I don't have to live there anymore. So
Yeah. Probably a lot healthier that way. It'll keep you in your flow.
Yeah.
And then when something really does take off, they will be so excited to come and tell you. So it'll just be good news, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just good news. That's it.
Just good news. Yeah. Oh, that is awesome. Well, I am so excited to have met you and to have had this conversation. I know we touched on so many different things, but I got value out of all of it. So I appreciate everything that you shared. Thank you for being
Absolutely.
here.
And I hope the folks that are listening or watching, I hope you find some value out of it too. If nothing else, you know how you don't want to be, right? Worst case scenario, you learn some that's a guy I don't want to be like, and you've learned something. So we'll leave it at that.
There you go. Thanks for being here.
Bye.